Okay, very intricate, complex, ingenious. Ingenious. Displaying artistic or inventive skills. Okay. All right. So dedal is our word of the day. So let's try to remember to use that in our speeches or in our evaluations today. Next, we're going to go over the roles. Is that right? I do go over the roles now, right?
Yes.
Is that right, Diego Maurice?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So we have our timers. Who's our timer for tonight? Hello. Hi. You're on mute. Oh, very good. Hi, Cheyenne. Can you tell us the role of a timer, please?
Yes, so my job tonight is not a dedal one. I will be keeping the time for each speech. And for the table topics, the speech should be 5 to 7 minutes, and the table topics will be 1 to 2 minute speeches. I have a collection of plastic cups. So when you, it may not work on the, oh, that one's green.
Oh yeah, it's like a green
it's
screen.
a green screen. Okay.
It's invisible.
Well, this cup is green, so we'll change the background. When you see the green cup, you have reached the minimum time. When you see this,
it's invisible too.
Yeah.
Just a second, let me take the background off. I have a variety, the color cups that will do green, yellow, or red, indicating your time is up for, there we go. Sorry about that.
We are not trained special effects.
Yeah. Okay, so your green cup here for the Dolphin Street taqueria will indicate you've reached the minimum time. This OK Bike Shop cup will represent that you are halfway through and about to hit your maximum time. And then this cup will indicate that you should start wrapping it up. So, and I will give a report at the end.
All right, thank you very much for that report and for your cup. They all made me a little thirsty. Let's go on to our art counter and grammarian. I think those roles have been combined tonight, art counter and grammarian. Hi, Tyler, if you would give us the explanation of those roles, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyler Gates, and I'll be the art counter and grammarian for this evening. For my role as art counter, excuse me, I'll be listening for filler words such as and and as for my role in grammarian, I will be, and for my role as grammarian, I will be listening for any abuses of the English language and keeping track of who uses the word of the day.
Thank you very much. And we have our general evaluator. Who is our general evaluator tonight?
Hello, everyone. Tonight, my role is general evaluator. General evaluator has a responsible to evaluate entire meeting, and I'll see you in the third portion of the meeting.
All right, thank you very much. I think our table topics master. Table topics master, is that you, Peter?
Yes, Olivia.
Very
good evening.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be the table topics master, where I'll present a question to whoever volunteers, and they'll respond on the spot with a hopefully logodidactic response.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Peter, and thank you to you and Cheyenne for leading the way with our word of the day. And without further ado, I would like for us to get into our prepared speeches. And we have two prepared speeches tonight. One is by Maurice. Would you be going first, Maurice?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's all welcome Maurice up to the lectern for his prepared speech.
Yes. And this will be 8 to 10 minutes limit.
Okay.
Yeah. Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, I have some stories from when I was in the military and I lived in Germany. Have plenty of them, but maybe 3 or 4 would fit into this time frame for this speech. Talking to you after dinner and after you all are full, and I hope you don't get sleepy. I mean, you'll probably get sleep because you're full, and but I hope my speech doesn't make you sleepy. The first part of my story from Germany is shortly after I arrived on the post that I was assigned to, and this was one weekend evening during our off time, and went downtown, and there was a club I went to. It may have been the first or second time I've been to this club. It was called the Palm Beach, and basically you go there for drinks and dancing on the dance floor and meeting people and so on and so forth. Anyway, I stepped outside, to just get some fresh air. And I talked to another soldier who happened to be there. And, I guess we were exchanging information where we were from and so on and so forth. But there was a car that was parked in front of the club. I believe it was a black Mercedes. So I was talking to this guy. We kept talking back and forth, and then somehow something distracted my attention or his attention. But I looked, and this guy was leaning on this black Mercedes. And I was taught as a kid, and I learned a lesson as a little kid, not to sit on a car or not to lean on a car. But anyway, as time went on, I went to talk to someone. I turned away from the guy who was leaning on the car, and then so many minutes went by, and I turned around, and this guy was laying on the ground on his back, and I guess he had a mark on his forehead. And what happened was he was pistol whipped from the back of a gun from the owner of the Mercedes. And he was complaining, you kids, and this is in Germany, you kids are troublemakers and stuff. And this guy was barely conscious. I said, wow. And like I said, I learned that lesson when I was a little kid. Don't lean on people's cars. And so this guy was almost knocked out, or he probably was knocked out briefly for leaning on this German guy's car. So that was a lesson learned from there, a life lesson, which I learned as a kid. So moving on to another story. I was living in Bamberg. It was a moderately sized city at the time. Of course, it was far from being the biggest city in Germany, but the next lesson learned was when I went to the next bigger town in the vicinity. It was called Nuremberg, or I guess in English they call it Nuremberg, from Nuremberg trials. And we went out, me and a couple other friends went out, I guess a Saturday night, to a club in Nuremberg. And we do the usual things that people do when they go out. But we were on our way back, and we hit the train. And another note is, I was assigned there for 18 months, and I wasn't allowed to drive a civilian vehicle. In order for me to be able to drive a civilian vehicle, I would have to be stationed there for 3 years and be command sponsor. That's what they call it. So anyway, we did our thing at the club, and then on our way back on the train, little did we know back then, well, at least I didn't know, maybe the other guys knew. I don't know how many times they've been on the train going back and forth from Nuremberg to Bamberg, but Bamberg was the last stop before the train went into East Germany. So this is when Germany was divided, West Germany and East Germany. But anyway, on the way back, I fell asleep, and I think my other friends fell asleep too. But the conductor or the employee on that train, he's well aware that the next stop is in East Germany. So all of a sudden I heard Bamberg, 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 woo. So we woke up and we got off the train, or else we would have been going into East Germany, and then who knows what would have happened then. And there's something called an international incident, where a soldier goes into East Germany unauthorized, and I would have gotten, I guess, a dressing down from the East Germans. So fortunately for us, we were woken up and we got off the train there. The next little story is more tragic, but this story it happened to be a soldier in our unit. Two of his stepsons were around my age at the time, I guess around 18, 19-ish. But at that same club that I went to, the first story that I told, these two, one of the two or both of them, I guess they helped each other out because they were both arrested. They killed a Greek national at that same club that I talked about earlier in the speech. But anyway, I was doing work during the weekday, and one of the sergeants came up to me and said, Heidelberg, you go and put on your civilian clothes because you're going to be in a lineup. So I put on my civilian clothes and went to it wasn't the military police station, it was a German police station just off post. And I got in the lineup with the two guys who were the stepsons of the soldier in my unit, and then maybe a couple other guys. And I saw the two-way mirror. I couldn't see through the mirror, but I saw the mirror was there, and I guess the witnesses to the crime had to positively identify the people who killed that Greek national. So I wasn't picked, so I guess they positively identified them as those two. But I had to stand and make I guess a non-expression, no smiling, just a straight expression, so they can help them determine who the perpetrators were. So that was done, and I went back to the post to my regular duties. But along with those lessons that I've learned, there are a couple more lessons that hold true to this day. The first one is I have yet to ride a train in the United States, even though I rode a train in Germany. And then the second one, I've never been in a police lineup in the United States, but I've been in a lineup in Germany. So those are three of the stories. And I have more, but for the sake of the speech, I presented these three stories. Madam Toastmaster.
All right, Maurice, thank you very much for your speech. First, let me begin by saying thank you for your service. I did not know, I don't know why I didn't know, that you were in the military. So thank you very much for your service
All right, thank
for
you.
our country. And I was real tickled about that. Don't lean on someone's car. Yeah, I learned that lesson at a young age as well. And I was never in the military, but you just don't lean on people's cars. And luckily, I'm glad you woke up before you ended up in East Germany. I'm just curious, what do you think would have happened there?
I probably the authorities would have accosted us, and then
Okay,
I don't know
okay.
how long it would have been between the time they accosted us and then the news was reported to my unit, or
Mm,
to the U.S. press.
oh my.
Yeah, because I have
Okay.
another story later on. I don't know if it would be done during the speech, but I can tell any one of y'all about it.
Okay. Okay, good. That was very interesting. And then Maurice in a lineup, I can't even imagine it. Okay, I won't take up any more time. Our next speech tonight is by who?
Me.
David. Okay, very good. Okay, well, we will please welcome David to the lecture for his speech, prepared speech, please. Thank you,
Okay,
David.
thank you. The module title that I've completed is Negotiate the Best Outcome. My speech title is Don't Mandate, Negotiate. That rhymes. When one is doing a negotiation, there are 4 possible outcomes. There's win-win, where both parties end up better than when they started. That's difficult to achieve, but it's the ultimate goal and it can happen. There's win-lose, which we're all familiar with. And thirdly, there's compromise, which I think is the most common, where each party has to give up something, but ultimately they get what they need, both parties. And fourth is simply walking away. Sometimes the 2 parties just aren't going to get where they need to get. And rather than drag on a negotiation, it's better just to give up and try again another day or move on to something else. My life has been something of conflict avoidance. So I haven't had a lot of negotiating experience. But the requirement for this speech is for me to talk about a real negotiating experience in my life, whether in the past or in the future. My choice is what you see behind me, not the refrigerator, but the entire house. This is my one and only house purchase. Prior to this, I lived in apartments. So in buying this house or in making the decision to buy a home at all, there was quite a bit of negotiating with myself, if that counts, but also with family and friends, and of course the realtor system. The first step in negotiating is to clarify my position and to know what my goals are. Because it's easy to have an idea of what I want to do, but I really need to understand what it is and why. So why do I really need to buy a home? Well, I'm an engineer. I love spreadsheets. So I made up a spreadsheet of the pros and cons of home ownership. And the pros won out, probably because I was getting really sick of living in apartments. But it was the right time in my life to buy a home. So the next step in negotiating is to research each option. So buying a home is first, what city do I want to live in? Well, I'm working in Mobile, so I want to stay here, of course. But more than that, what location? In doing my research and my own personal experience, I came across an article that said commute times to work is directly proportional to a person's level of happiness. They actually did studies where they asked people, and the people with longer commute times reported they were less happy. And I understood that, so location was everything. And a good example of this is I have a friend of mine that also was working with, bought a house. The house I ended up with here is about a 10 or 15-minute commute to work. My friend bought a house that was about a 40-minute commute to work, but it was a nicer house than this, and it was in a better yard, and it was just overall a better deal and for the same price. And he was so proud of it, and he loved it so much. But as the years went on, one day he did come up to me and he said, you were right. Location is really the important thing, because he was getting tired of the daily grind of driving to work. So clarifying our options, what we're really looking for, is important. The next step for me, once I decided on that I was wanting to try for this particular home, was to get some help. I think there's nothing wrong when negotiating to pull in an expert. So I found a friend of mine at work who happened to be a licensed realtor. His name is David Tackon, and he was the dedal negotiator. He was incredible. I learned from David that to be objective and impersonal in negotiations. And when it really got down to the nitty-gritty, to the financial part of it, he became like a tiger. He was aggressive, but he knew the system. He knew how to do it. It was to the point where it was scaring me. I was thinking that, I really want this home. If you get them too mad at us, they're probably going to just say, "Oh, forget it. We'll sell it to somebody else." But he did know what he was doing. Another bit of advice he gave me is, being an engineer, I had a good opportunity to thoroughly inspect this home. So I did my own home inspection. I had my tape measures and my levels, and went up into the attic, was taking pictures of everything. And I came up with this detailed list of things that needed to be addressed. And some of them were important, but some not so much. One of the things on my list was I found some light bulbs that had burned out. So I had that on my list. It's like, oh, he needs to fix these light bulbs. And David, when he went over the list, he put his arm around me and he's like, "I think we can let the light bulbs go." And I learned that, the little things aren't that important in a negotiation. Know what's worth fighting for and what's not. I mean, he told me, it's like, you could go by Lowe's and pick up some light bulbs. So that was a valuable experience. And when we finally agreed upon a price and it was time to close, we met at the title loan or the title office, and there I learned another lesson. I felt moved because the person building this was sort of a one-off house built in an old neighborhood where the old house had been torn down, and they built some patio homes. So the builder was building this house. He usually did remodeling, but he was trying his hand in home building. And he really put his heart and soul into building this thing. And now I have a roof over my head, I have shelter, and he did a good job of addressing all of my concerns and giving me what I needed. And so I thanked him. I showed appreciation. And I think he was a little bit surprised that somebody that's spending all this money would do that. But it really made the negotiations go more smoothly and better, and we appreciated each other. So to conclude, I now realize that I should have done more negotiating in my life. I've heard that not making a decision is a decision. And I think by that same mindset, not negotiating is a negotiation. It's just a lose-lose one. So don't be afraid to negotiate, Mr. Toastmaster, Madam Toastmaster.
That's okay. Thank you, David. That was another beautiful speech by you. And don't mandate, negotiate. That's really good. And I remember my house buying, well, actually I built, but yeah, it was a beautiful experience, but there was quite a bit of negotiation. Oh yeah. All right, guys, we are running short on time. I think we did start a little late, but Diego, are we going to be able to? We're gonna have to do at least one table topic master. I mean, one table topics I know, but we only have 2 minutes before it's time to move into evaluation.
Okay.
Okay, good. So Peter, if you would come on up, please, and we
Yes,
will
thank you.
start you off. Table
Any
topics.
volunteers for table topics tonight?
I volunteer.
Okay, so Diego, if you could have dinner with anyone from the past or present, who would it be?
Oh, geez. Peter, you've asked a very difficult question for me to reflect on tonight. Because there are so many people that I'd love to speak with. There's people who are specialists in policy and global economy and what makes the world turn. And then there's people who I want to interview who understand how the world works, who are effective scientists who reflect on experimentation and observation in order to conclude important facts about our planet. So you've put me in a very difficult position to think about which person I'd rather speak with more. I think
it can be anyone. It can be anyone. They don't have to be alive right now.
yes, but that's the problem. Like, I can't think of a scientist who also reflects on public policy or economics or something like that. That's the catch-22 that I'm in, but it's still a very good question to reflect on. I think the person I would like to interview the most is a scientist named Claremont Patterson, I think is his last name. And the remarkable thing that he did that I'm just in awe of was he discovered that lead in gasoline was being used and was toxic for people. And he embarked on an important education campaign explaining the dangers of lead in exposure. And he is a big reason why today there's unleaded gasoline, because of his scientific expertise, but also his commitment to scientific integrity and his interest in public health and well-being. So I think if there's one person I'd love to interview the most. I know he'd be very dedal with many of the chemistry aspects that he did in order to explain his research, but I would still really love the opportunity to speak with him because I think he left a really positive impact for everyone's lives because of his grit and his intelligence. So I think that's the person I'd love to interview the most. That's a very good question, Peter. I'm going to return the lectern back to you. Thank you.
Thank you for that thoughtful response. And his name is Claire Patterson?
I think so.
Okay. I learned something new. Now they say unleaded gas on all the gas stations now. It's public health.
Apologize. Claire Cameron Patterson.
Okay.
Yes.
Very nice. And I guess that's all the time we have, Olivia. Then I'll turn the table back to you.
Thank you, Peter. We're going to have to get you back up to do table topics master again because, sorry, we didn't get a chance to hear much from you tonight. But thank you very much. And thank you, Diego, for your response to that question. Okay, now we are getting ready to go into our evaluation portion. And I am going to bring up our general evaluator, which is Carrie. So if you would please give Carrie your attention and round of applause. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I am General Evaluator for tonight's meeting. And first of all, I'd like to, the general evaluation this entire meeting. But I'd like to do this at the end of this portion. So let's start in the first evaluator, Diego, and he's going to evaluate first prepared speaker, Maurice.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, everyone, for your attention on my report on Maurice's presentation. First of all, thank you, Maurice, for sharing your experiences with Germany, and it was very wise of you to select these types of experiences to share with your particular speech goal tonight. So I had the pleasure again of reviewing and listening to Maurice's speech, and really the
entire purpose of this speech is to focus on developing good storytelling techniques and and developing a captivating way of grabbing your audience's attention. And I think he did a really good job of doing that tonight. I know every story there was something that I was very struck with shock, I would say. I don't know how I don't know how everyone else felt, but I definitely was very entertained by tonight's speech. So a few remarks that I want to share on his speech are on the topic of some of the questions that the evaluation sheet points out. So so one of the questions that is asked is, how effectively does the speaker capture the audience's attention and hold it? And I think without a doubt, Maurice has gotten a really good idea of what information and what stories are really captivating for an audience, because he explained about witnessing someone getting pistol whipped. I've never witnessed that in my life, and I hope I never do, but definitely when things escalate to that point, you definitely want to hear more about what was going on. I think all of the three stories that he focused on tonight, about the pistol whipping story, the train story, and the police lineup, were all very good stories to be told and very captivating stories tonight. So he did an excellent job of selecting three stories, communicating them effectively within the 8 to 10 minute mark, because the more stories you try to cram into your period of time that you're at the lectern only decreases the amount of time you can focus on each individual one. So he did a good job of using his time to effectively set up the stage and then get to the really shocking moments and the very captivating moments. So that's tonight's speech is a very great example of good storytelling technique. Another question that the evaluation form asks me to reflect on is, how effectively does the speaker deliver transition between different parts of his speech? And it was very clear that he explained, when he was at the club and he saw the pistol whipping experience, and then he turned the stage into being on a train in the direction of East Germany. It was very clear to follow along each different anecdote that he shared. It was never confusing. I got the feeling that no one got confused thinking, oh, he was at a club, there was a pistol whipping, and then he got on a train to East Germany, and then the train let go and he was suddenly in a police lineup. It was very clear he was telling three different stories. And that's a very important storytelling technique in order to make sure the audience is following every breadcrumb, every cookie crumb that you are trying to get to the main idea about. So there are more evaluation questions that I was asked to reflect on, but in the interest of time and for Maurice's benefit, I'm going to share those personal comments with him through email. So thank you all for your attention tonight on my evaluation of Maurice's speech, and I'm going to return the lectern back to Carrie, our general evaluator. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. I was very curious about how you evaluate Maurice's speech, because his speech about the more like a culture experience, which I'm really interested in, because I'm from Japan, not from here, and how you really evaluate his culture experience. So it was very interesting. Thank you so much. Next is let's see, second evaluator Majet. He will evaluate second speaker David. Don't mandate, negotiate.
Hello, everyone. I'll be evaluating the second speech, don't mandate, negotiate. So we, as David mentioned, we are on both sides. Like sometimes people are strong to that level that they mandate their strategy, and sometimes people are so soft that they negotiate very poorly and they go in lose-lose situation. And as David mentioned, I'm also in the same category where I'm very loose in negotiations. I would rather buy it at that price than asking for it or negotiating. So that's a good overall structure that he laid down, and good outcome. and I think we are very short in time as well. So I'm going to go over some of the points that I noted about negotiation, the best outcomes. So as David started mentioning the types of negotiation, therefore, four outcomes. So that seems to be a very interesting way of grabbing attention. I liked it, the way David split them into four categories: win-win, win-lose, and compromise, and walking away. So whenever you present something structural like this always grabs attention and easy to remember and easy to build our understanding on it. So I like that. And the second point also, when he mentioned the result of the negotiation is back here, not the phrase, but something of that nature was able to grab everyone's attention, the how that he meant to say. So I like that aspect, that with this not being in physical environment, being in online, he was still able to grab attention from every one of us on those specific points. And the mention of the evaluation sheet mentions that the content have to be just overviewed mention, not as we're not gonna talk about much details about what was the item to be negotiated and more of that nature, but the lesson learned or like overview of the negotiation. So it was good that he didn't go much detail, but he went to some aspects of negotiations. So that's good. But I think the point that he made at the end was also very nice. I like that, the objective and being objective in the negotiation and being non-emotional. So this was one of the area that I mentioned in the evaluation sheet as well. You excelled in having people attention, and your clarity and your organizational skills were excellent. You excelled in it. Maybe you want to work on vocal variety, as you have demonstrated previously, an excellent bar on it. So I have you as maybe some vocal variety, depending on the tone or the subject. Negotiation went through, oh, it went through, or oh, it did not go through. Like some kind of opportunity that you get to inculcate some vocal variety in that speech. And to the last option, where would be an opportunity for the speech, would be where the notes of the evaluator mention, like instead of concentrating more on the content, maybe some strategy or something that that comes out of it. So I think you already mentioned some of the strategies, like don't shy, speak out, and also you mentioned if you don't negotiate, you lose kind of, but to challenge yourself, I think more towards the subject of negotiation or any topic that we're discussing, I think more towards the strategy to be derived from it, that would be more of a benefit of audience, and also would be a harder to present topic than the content itself. To have more of those objectives would be a good opportunity for everyone. And on this speech, I would think I would relinquish the lectern back to Madam Toastmaster. Thank you all. Sorry, to General Evaluator.
Thank you. Well, actually, yeah, back to Carrie. Go ahead, Carrie.
Okay. Thank you, Majid. I like your speech because your deep analysis of David's speech makes me understand deeply and more. So it really helped me next time I negotiate. And also, your viewpoints is pretty similar to me, especially you talk about the first part is most impressive, and the same as me, its opening is really interesting, and you thought the same. So I really enjoyed. Thank you so much, Majid. Next is our counter, Kyler.
Thank you. All right, so for my counters report, we did really good, only except for myself. I didn't count my own because they were above 10. So I had somewhere around above 10, and then Olivia had one and Cheyenne had one, and everyone else seemed to do really well. I didn't catch any for anyone else. For my, now I'm going to say like 10 more. For the grammarian's report, I didn't hear any abuses of the English language, and we did really good with the word of the day. Olivia said the word of the day, Cheyenne said the word of the day, and Peter said the word of the day. So that's it for my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyler.
And Diego
Next.
said the word of the day once as well.
Oh, okay. I'll put that down.
Too late.
I tried to
Okay.
say it as well about David Tackon. So.
Oh, yes, you did. Well, we did much better with the word of the day. See, these are being recorded for history, so we will know.
Okay. Next is timer. Cheyenne.
Yes. Hello. For our speeches, Maurice, your speech was supposed to be 8 to 10 minutes, and you did 9 minutes and 47 seconds. David, your speech was 7 minutes and 34 seconds. Diego, your table topic was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. The evaluation, Diego, your evaluation was 4 minutes and 8 seconds. Majid, your evaluation was 4 minutes and 26 seconds. And that is all.
Thank you, Cheyenne. Guess that's all, right? Let's check. Yes, okay. And I'd like to share the evaluation for tonight. We all the dedal speaker, dedal. It's hard to pronounce. We all are dedal speakers. We did very well, including me. And we started 6:45. Actually, we are not late. None of us show up late either. We talk about the business stuff in the 10 minutes, and actually we started 6:55 for this speech meeting. And overall, we're not on a good punctuation, and we adjusted the number of the table topic speech, only one. So we end up with we go into the on time. Very good. Thank you. Now return to the Toastmaster Olivia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carrie, for your evaluation, and thanks everyone else that gave their report. And do we have an education overview? I thought I heard someone was going to do one. Was that you, Kyler?
I had an educational overview in mind.
Okay, thank you. We will have Diego come to the lecture.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for your attention. I was again looking at some old Toastmaster magazines to give me some wisdom on education overview. And this is from the December of last year magazine. There is an article about using stories to breathe life into every speech. If you all have the opportunity and you have this magazine, definitely look back at this section when you get the moment, because he really highlights, this author really highlights the importance and power and level of memorization, staying power that storytelling techniques can infuse within any speech that you give. There are 15 storytelling tips within this article, and I only have the opportunity to share up to my 3 favorite ones with you all. I think the 3 ones that I want to reflect on are: number 4, don't be the guru of your own story. So one of the things he highlights is when you are telling a story, it's important not to just make you be the only character coming up with wisdom or suggestions or making decisions like that. Because he points out that if you tell a story and you pretend and you make it seem like, oh, Diego did X, Y, and Z, and then this new idea occurred to Diego just out of the blue that made this procedure or this idea or this event happen. That's really not how things play out. When we have a story, we have multiple characters, and it's important to let other characters provide wisdom or give you ideas or give you feedback in a story that you give, because I don't have all the great ideas. If I'm trying to tell a story with Majid, I don't want to pretend that every great idea came from my mind and Majid was just the person who acted out these ideas. In a real working relationship or in a real personal relationship with friends, you have a give and take. And Majid is a very wise and intelligent person, and it's very likely that maybe he shared something important. Maybe I came to him with a problem, and Majid gave me an important piece of wisdom that I then took to heart. That's really how these types of stories play out, how these really human experiences play out. It's not that one person sits in a corner and reflects really hard about a problem that they're having, and suddenly an idea emerges that corrects the problem. You usually have feedback from multiple people with different life experiences. That's one. I think the other one that I want to share, out of the interest of time, is don't start each story from the beginning. I think that's a really important storytelling technique. It's frequent that we follow a sequential pathway with our stories. We start with a beginning, a middle, and an end. But there's nothing wrong with starting with the middle or the ending part if it's the very captivating and the very exciting part. If anything, that gives you novelty for the audience. The audience rarely experiences stories like that. And now you have an opportunity to go back. If you start at the beginning, you have an opportunity to explain, well, this is what happened in the middle, and this is what happened in the beginning. Sometimes it's way more important to start off with the exciting stuff rather than to start off with the stuff that starts out first. And then, because it's more important to captivate an audience rather than tell a story like how it happened sometimes. I think that's really an important technique to think about when you start wanting to send a message and you want it to resonate and stay with people. Don't be afraid to mix up the storylines and tell what's more exciting and then work your way back. I think those are the two pieces of storytelling techniques that I wanted to share with everyone tonight as our education overview. I'm going to return the lectern back to Olivia, our Toastmaster. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Diego, for that education overview. And I do love when a movie starts at the ending or in the middle and then it works its way backwards. I love it because then I get to see it all make sense.
Makes me
If
think
that
about Pulp
is
Fiction.
it, I think we need to. I'm sorry, David. What were you saying?
I just said makes me think about the movie Pulp Fiction.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's see. We have any awards?
No, I
I
don't
know
think we
I
have
had one.
awards tonight.
Okay. And let's see. We need to go over our agenda for next meeting. Do we have any prepared speeches? And is anyone prepared to take on a role right now? Okay, well, be sure to sign in to Easy Speech. I'm going to go ahead and nominate Peter to do his table topics next week.
I second that.
Yes, I think so.
And I was just planning on, I'll just again pre-populate the meeting rules for the next month, just to make it easier for everyone. So watch your emails for those announcements, and be sure to email back if you can't make it to a particular day. So that'll be on me.
All right. So Diego does, he has a prepared speech scheduled for next week, and there's one slot open for next week.
Okay, then I will again look at the education sheet and select the person who has not been completing, who hasn't completed enough speeches. Whoever has the least number of prepared speeches done, they will be the next person to step up next week.
Uh-oh. Okay, get ready, everyone. Okay, I think that's it. The time is now 7:46. And I think we can go ahead and adjourn this meeting. I'm going to turn it back over to adjourn. I'm sorry. This meeting, I'm going to turn it back over to our president, Diego.
Okay. Thank you, Olivia, and thank you to everyone's leadership tonight in serving in important roles of our meeting tonight. And I think that is all that needs to be said about our meeting tonight, and it will be adjourned. Thank you so much.
Hey, Maurice, I have a question.